Good morning, YouTube. I'm going to be conducting an experiment, something I wanted to do for a while. And I'm going to be conducting something to see if a colonial era fascine can withstand musket fire, or a musket ball. Now, what is a fascine, if you don't know? A fascine is literally, the translation is a bundle of sticks tightly wrapped together, and they were used mostly for fortifications, earthworks. Later on, even up as far as World War One, even in World War II, large bundles were used for crossing ditches and things like that. But during the colonial eras, particularly the Revolutionary War, they were also used in instances as makeshift armor. The most prevalent incident was during the Battle of Valcour Island, which was on October 11th, 1776, between Benedict Arnold, before he betrayed the Americans, was actually a very smart and brilliant tactician. He saved the Revolution twice. The first time being the Battle of Valcour Island, and then again the Battle of Saratoga. I'm thinking if he had not betrayed this country, there's a very good chance that man could have been president, easily could have been president. But at the Battle of Valcour Island, Arnold had a makeshift fleet of gunboats and larger ships to counter the British fleet. What Arnold did, because the British had Mohawk allies that were along the shoreline, because they built these ships right along the shore, and they were anchored out, and the gunboats had a really shallow draft. There is an excellent reproduction of a full-scale one of the gunboats at the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum. It's the Philadelphia 2, which is a exact one-to-one replica of the Philadelphia, which was sunk and is now at the Smithsonian because it was raised and put there. It's on display to this day. There are other gunboats just like it, the Spitfire, which has been found, and it's on the bottom of Lake Champlain in surprisingly amazing condition. These boats were not very big. They were armed with 3 cannons, bow gun around a 12-pounder, and 2 9-pound guns, one on either side, and smaller swivel guns. They were crewed by like 50 men. Very crowded conditions. But the one thing Arnold did was he took fascines and wrapped them together and hung them around the gunboats, just above the gun deck, so that the crews would be better protected from the Mohawk allies of the British that were running along the shores and taking pot shots at them, and which did happen. And there's nothing saying one way or the other if those fascines worked. So I decided to try it. And back when I first visited the Philadelphia 2, they had an excellent, they had basically all the fascines up. Along the outside of the Philadelphia to show where it was. And you can see a really good representation of, they were longer in length all the way in some areas and shorter in length. But they were essentially the same thing. They were sticks wrapped tightly together like this. About the same diameter, maybe a little bit bigger, because if you look at one of the swivel guns, they've got a diameter about like this at the back. So it's pretty close to this. Maybe they might have been a little thicker, but these are nothing more than just the same thing they would have had on Valcour Island. I'm only about 45 minutes, so all the trees and all the wood would be the same. They literally took wood it was just brushwood. It was nothing more than brush, and they would take and wrap it together. They usually would make their own rope, but the concept is the same. And they would take it and they'd hang it. And in the case of Arnold, they hung it from, again, you'll see in the photos. And of course, fascines are not to be confused with gabions, which gabions were the fortifications that were sticks wrapped. They were tied vertically, much larger. And they were woven together, and they were filled with rocks and dirt, which, also fortifications. for artillery fire and for for musket fire. But normally fascines were not used like that. They were meant mostly for earthworks, stuff, where they weren't going to be used as armor. But in this case, Arnold used them as makeshift armor. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking a 58 caliber, my Zouave musket, which, yes, it's a rifled musket, but I'm doing it mostly for the accuracy. Now, why am I using 58 caliber? The British guns were 75. Most of the Mohawks and the Allies to the British didn't have brown vest muskets. They had trade guns. And a common caliber of the trade guns was like right around 20 gauge, 60 caliber or so. So this is going to be pretty close to what the trade guns would have been, what you would see the Indians with. And put it this way, if this penetrates it, it's not going to matter anyways, because if this goes through this and goes all the way through, then I guarantee you a British 75, like the larger 715, 720 diameter round ball that they used in their muskets or bigger would easily pass through if a 58 will. So I'm going to load my Zouave musket up with 50 grains of powder, and I'm going to try it with that and see if that penetrates. If it penetrates, then we'll know it was not successful. If it doesn't, well, then I might probably try another one, and I'll probably then try my French 69. See if that penetrates it. But for now, we're going to try the 58. And since it's going to be a nice day today, and I hope to get to the range in the next little bit, and hope to see you then. Well, YouTube, looks like we have our results, and the first shot went just over the top of the fascine. The second shot just skinned one of the sticks and went through the back of the cardboard, which was, not as unexpected. The third shot pretty much hit it dead center, and you can see the results for yourself. It pretty well blew this all apart. And you can see where it made you can see the two holes I have circled. The one on the right is the first shot that just skinned over the top of it, and the second shot is in the middle. The third shot, you can see, definitely went through after doing some real damage to the wood. You can see the wood is just destroyed. So, would a fascine stop a musket ball? Apparently not. Now, maybe if the sticks were bigger, if I was farther away. I was only about 15 to 20 yards away. But it's really much hearsay. Maybe it would have deflected it more, because it looks like it kind of, from what I can tell, it might have deflected it up a little bit. Who knows? A couple of these stacked behind each other, that might have been different. But a single fascine like this is a 58 caliber patched round ball. Again, about the same size as what would have been used in the trade musket of the time, like right around 20 gauge size. So pretty much comparable to, and definitely smaller than like a British musket, which would have been, in the neighborhood of a 75 caliber. The bore is 75, the ball might have been 715, 7.725, something like that. But definitely not resistant to musket balls. So also probably wouldn't have been, it would have been not at all resistant to grape shot, canister shot, which would explain a lot of the injuries that happened in the Battle of Valcour Island, where a lot of the crews on the American side were just, because they were tightly packed on those ships, there was nowhere to go. Those gunboats are not very big. They're only like 50 feet long. You had a full crew on them like that. You can imagine the devastation. But at least it was worth trying out. I may try this later on to see and bundle these up to see how they do against modern ammo, like 22, things like that. See about maybe handguns. But that's something further down the road. And with that being said, YouTube, have a good day.